Will the king and I have children? Oh, aye, 6 and 10 for him, and 3 for you. Gold shall be their crowns, and gold their shrouds. And when your tears have drowned you, the Valonqar shall wrap his hands about your pale white throat and choke the life from you. Lovers of Westeros, you are well acquainted with this. This is Maggie the Frog's prophecy to Cersei that loosely predicts Cersei's entire future. In my last video, I made the case for how Daenerys Targaryen could fulfill the Valonqar portion of this prophecy, and in so doing, I got that curiosity bug as to who else could potentially fulfill that figure. In this video, I'll be exploring Jaqen H'ghar as the Valonqar and how that scenario could play itself out. As was the case in the Daenerys video, I'll commence with my customary due diligence and explain how Jaqen qualifies as a Valonqar. We've established that Valonqar roughly translates to little sibling, younger sibling, so whoever the Valonqar is can't be the eldest in their line of siblings, nor could they be an only child. How could this square with Jaqen? We don't know anything about him. Well, it squares by omission, the show's omission. You see, the Valonqar portion of Maggie the Frog's prophecy was never included on the show. And because the show didn't mention it, the rules don't apply to Jaqen. So we don't have to know Jack Diddley about his personal life or if he had siblings or whatever. Now, for the second how of the equation, if Jaqen was the Valonqar, how would that play itself out on the show? Admittedly, this involves major speculation, but because the show has given itself the wiggle room, I'm going to speculate away. Recall, if you would, Season 7, Episode 3. Cersei meets with Tycho Nestoris, a representative of the Iron Bank of Braavos, to discuss the crown's repayment of its debt. Debt which Tywin Lannister described as tremendous. The following is a transcript of part of Cersei and Tycho's dialogue, which immediately sparked my suspicions that something was afoot. The Iron Bank appreciates how you cast off the yoke of superstition, freeing the crown from elements who sought to subvert the rule of law. The destruction of the Sept of Baelor was a tragic accident. Indeed, but sometimes tragedies are necessary to restore order and rational leadership. Let's take a pause. First, that last bit from Tycho was delivered with an eerie smirk. Now, my spidey senses are tingling, but we'll circle back to that in a moment. If we take a deeper look at the dialogue, something doesn't add up. What part of Cersei screams rational leader? The High Sparrow and the Faith Militant rose to power because of Cersei's misguided scheming against House Tyrell, a house with the wealth to help the crown pay off the money it owes, no less. The supposed destruction of the Sept was Cersei subverting the rule of law. Cersei is the perfect embodiment of the things Tycho says the Iron Bank is against. And the Iron Bank isn't stupid, they would know this, which is why when Tycho smirked and delivered the line, "Sometimes tragedies are necessary to restore order and rational leadership," I suspected what Tycho was really saying is that tragedy would soon befall Cersei, so that order and a rational leader might be restored. In other words, Cersei's gonna die. Cue those tingly spider senses and cue Jaqen H'ghar. I suspect that the man talking to Cersei isn't Tycho. Instead, it's actually Jaqen H'ghar using Tycho's face, and he's been sent by the Iron Bank to make sure it has its due. So what we saw wasn't Cersei paying the crown's debt with the Tyrell gold. She paid the fee of her own assassination. Gives a certain irony to the phrase, "A Lannister always pays their debts," doesn't it? Before continuing, I'd like to address something that goes to the heart of this argument. That is the Iron Bank's reputation. The show flirts with this, the books concentrate on it a bit more, But the Iron Bank doesn't play about its money. A popular saying amongst the Bravosi, echoed by others in Westeros, is the Iron Bank will have its due. When monarchs default on their debts or are foolish enough to not honor their agreements with the Iron Bank, new princes emerge from nowhere to take their thrones. New princes who honor their predecessors' debt in their own. There's no definitive proof, but it's my suspicion that the Iron Bank creates an opening for their new monarch, one they know will pay them back, by hiring a faceless man to kill the previous monarch. Now, the show flirts with the Iron Bank's reputation in Season 4, Episode 5, when Tywin informs Cersei of the crown's tremendous debt, but it stops short of showing just how ruthless the temple really is. Might this have foreshadowed Cersei's fate at the hands of the Iron Bank later, or at least suggested that her fate would be intertwined with the Iron Bank? Maybe. All the same, based off the established MO, we can see how it would be that the Iron Bank would remove Cersei and seat another ruler. Now, the show kind of left this out of Cersei's storyline, but in the books, she thumbs her nose at the Iron Bank, says the Iron Bank will have its due when she says they will, and she takes money that the Crown is supposed to pay back on their debt to the Iron Bank and uses it to reboot the Crown's naval fleet, and ends up getting robbed blind, by the way. So she really shot herself in the foot with that one, but all the same, you can kind of see how in the show she doesn't make paying back the Iron Bank a priority. So it would stand to reason that they would want to remove her. And Jaqen, being the impetus for that, isn't as far-fetched as you might have originally thought. Now, what tipped me off to this whole theory about Jaqen possibly being Tycho was Tycho's comportment in his scene with Cersei, especially when contrasted with his comportment in previous scenes with Stannis and Mace Tyrell. With those two, Tycho was relatively terse and cold. He didn't try to curry favor with flattery, bestow Stannis with compliments, nothing. In fact, it was the opposite. He made Stannis wait hours on end to talk, retorts Tywin's message that Stannis is a jealous uncle and would-be usurper who costs Westeros greatly in terms of finances and lives lost, and he even chastises Stannis for bestowing titles on a thief, that thief being Davos. Tycho then curtly details why Stannis isn't a profitable venture for the Iron Bank. With Cersei, Tycho immediately offers condolences for Tommen, calls him a fine young man, and Cersei cuts through that BS and says she knows he wasn't sent to deliver condolences. But does Tycho stop? No. He immediately follows up by congratulating her on becoming queen and comparing her to Lord Tywin. Twice. And we know Cersei ate that shit up because for her there's no higher praise than being compared to her father. There couldn't be a sharper contrast in Tycho's comportment while he was with Stannis. Might the change in demeanor be because the man sitting in front of Cersei wasn't the same man who sat in front of Stannis? And might the man be Jaqen lulling Cersei into a false sense of security until he receives the fee for his services? I mean, that wouldn't be hard to do. This woman believes Euron Greyjoy is loyal to her. And not for nothing, from where I stand, backing Cersei makes no sense. Not only has she been thumbing her nose at paying them back, she admits that her only ally is Euron, which Tycho himself calls bullshit on, and that she's relying on the Golden Company to stand against Daenerys, who has every Dothraki warrior in the world united into one Khalasar, an army of Unsullied, and the three dragons behind her. Not to mention the North, the Reach, and Dorne are all against Cersei too. Tycho was very frank to both Stannis and Cersei that the Iron Bank invests in endeavors they deem likely to be successful. At this point, Cersei is the antithesis of most likely to succeed. Combined with the fact that Cersei has done nothing but cause chaos in the realm, subvert the rule of law, and demonstrate that she's the furthest thing from a rational leader, I'm left thinking there has to be something going on with Tycho. And it wouldn't surprise me if that something was Jaqen biding his time until he got his fee. Cersei also invited Tycho to stay in the capital as her honored guest. And if this theory is true, that means she gave Jaqen all the time in the world to plan and carry out the assassination on her. Furthermore, in Season 4, Episode 6, during Stannis' visit to the Iron Bank, the following exchange occurs between Davos and Tycho. Who's the real power in King's Landing? Humor me. Tywin Lannister. How old is Tywin Lannister? 67. 67. And when he dies, who's in command? A half-grown boy, product of incest? Cersei Lannister, queen whose people despise her? Jaime Lannister, a man best known for killing the king he was sworn to protect? When Tywin's gone, who do you back? That is a problem for another time. There it is. Tycho just acknowledged that the Iron Bank isn't high on Cersei as an option to back, nor is any Lannister for that matter. Cersei has only gotten worse, and the crown's debt has only increased since Tycho said that. So it would be reasonable to assume that the Iron Bank had started planning and by now fully planned what they would do if Cersei assumed the Iron Throne, and another time became now. One final thing I'd like to mention with regards to Jaqen disguising himself as Tycho. In the scene with Tycho and Cersei, it opens up with Cersei pouring them both a glass of wine. When she offers Tycho his glass, he kindly declines it. Maybe the man just doesn't drink when he does business. Actually, that's not true. There's a scene in the books where Tycho and Jon Snow have a meeting and they both get drunk as a skunk. However, in this instance, what if Tycho's refusal is all part of the illusion and Jaqen, as Tycho, is establishing that he doesn't drink, so Cersei won't find it odd when he later refuses another glass. That way, when he does poison her wine later and thus refuses a cup, she won't get suspicious, but rather may just chalk the refusal up to him not being someone that drinks wine. Now, I'm not saying that's why Tycho refused the cup definitively. I'm just raising the possibility because when he did that, it just struck me as interesting. Again, I'd like to reiterate that this is simply a theory. I don't know conclusively that Jaqen being Tycho is true. I'm just theorizing based off what I've seen in the show, and what I've seen demonstrates that the show has given itself enough wiggle room to run with this if they so chose. And no, this wouldn't mean Jaqen killed Tycho. While the show totally misconstrued the concept of the Faceless Men and what happens with Arya while she's there, per the show's own standard, a Faceless Man can apparently drink a potion which allows them to use the face of living people and dead alike, which nullifies them taking faces in the first place, but whatever. So that could be how Jaqen reproduced Tycho's face without killing him, which again is strictly a show concept. It does not work like that in the books. Despite everything, there is another way to reintroduce Jaqen into the story should the show forego the Tycho route. Someone other than the Iron Bank could hire a Faceless Man to assassinate Cersei. Honorable mention, Tyrion. In the books, Tyrion tells Varys that if he had the finances, he would hire a Faceless Man to kill Cersei. In the show, this definitely wouldn't work because Tyrion does not have the finances, and he believes Cersei to be pregnant. So killing her would mean killing his unborn niece or nephew. Per Tyrion's own assertion, despite the hatred he has for Cersei, he does love her children. So he wouldn't have her assassinated as long as she's pregnant. Allegedly pregnant. first place, Euron Greyjoy. There are multiple reasons why I think it makes all the sense in the world for Euron to do this. First, I'll state my personal opinion, then transition to show and book evidence. In my personal opinion, one of the show's many failures is the character of Euron Greyjoy. Apart from Dorian Martell, I can't think of a worse character adaptation. In the books, Euron Greyjoy is the embodiment of pure evil. He's by far the worst, most nasty villain in the series. I won't say he makes Ramsay look like child's play, but Euron is in a class all his own. The show has failed to have Euron do a single thing to make him live up to his novel counterpart. Instead, they've reduced him to a snarky troll who makes comments about fingers and bums and giving his privates to people. Now, don't get me wrong, I think the actor who portrays Euron has done the best job of polishing a turd I've ever seen. So I find myself rooting for the guy, even though I couldn't be more disappointed in the show's handling of the character. And I know I've praised Euron in past videos, and the reason that is, again, is because I happen to think that even though the actor looks nothing like Euron is described as looking in the books, the actor is really, really good and very talented. And so, in my opinion, I look at what he's managed to do with basically shit for a plot and how invested I get in him because of his ability to polish that turd. And I think, if the show had bothered to make Euron even a third or half of what his book counterpart was, what more could, I think his name is Pilu Aizbek, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, the actor that plays Euron. How great would he be with actual decent material? It gets me so frustrated, and I feel like it's a total waste and a disservice, not only to the audience, but actually to the actor. More to the point, though, the only hope the show has of having Euron do anything remotely reminiscent of his book counterpart is to have him kill Cersei. But even then, how evil is it really when one villain takes out another villain who's got a class all her own of evil? Whatever. My point is, killing Cersei by commissioning her assassination would be the only way to prevent Euron from being a total waste of time. And not for nothing, a conflict with Euron is the only way for Cersei to be relevant. I've said it once, I'll say it again. I think it was a huge mistake for the show not to have killed Cersei in the season 7 finale. I'm sorry, but once the Night King got a GD dragon, I stopped caring about anything going on in King's Landing. I don't care about Cersei, about Jaime, about Bronn, about the Greyjoys. Nothing. They should have killed Cersei off in the season 7 finale and let the last season of the show, season 8, only focus on the Long Night. I mean, a battle against the Night King and his undead army for the sake of humanity is kind of a big deal, but again, whatever, just one humble book snob's opinion. Now let's transition to tangible reason. In the books, Euron has repeatedly killed and kinslayed to ascend the Salt Throne. It's strongly implied that he hired a faceless man to kill his brother Balon to precipitate a king's moot. So if he's hired a faceless man to kill a king once, why wouldn't he do it again? Or why wouldn't he do it to a queen? Shit, he should have no qualms about it if he can so easily kill his own family. Or have them killed. And unlike Tyrion, Euron has the finances to hire a faceless man thanks to his many years of pirating. While the show had Euron murder Balon directly, because of the book precedent, the show could remix that and save the whole hiring a skilled assassin thing for another of Euron's victims. Plus, for a variety of reasons, he may not want to appear complicit in Cersei's death, so hiring a faceless assassin who would make the death look like an accident makes sense. And Jaqen could be that faceless man. We've also had characters openly discuss Euron's MO. In Season 6, Episode 9, as Theon, Yara, and Daenerys negotiate their alliance, Dani asks why she shouldn't just wait for Euron if he has more ships, and the following exchange occurs. Euron's offer is also an offer of marriage, you see. You won't get one without the other. He murdered our father and would have murdered us. He'll murder you as soon as you have what he wants. That last bit ties into what Tycho alluded to when Cersei told him that Euron was loyal to her. Tycho responded that Euron was loyal for now. So, if Euron would kill his brother Balon, who had the Iron Islands to give, and he'd kill Daenerys, who has more to give than anyone, why wouldn't he also kill Cersei? I mean, and not for nothing, in the dragon pit scene, Euron looked pretty impressed by Daenerys and her dragon. It was like, Cersei who? But getting back to this, hiring a faceless man would be the cleanest way to dispose of Cersei once, for now, ends, and she's given Euron what he wants. And once more, the faceless man he gets to take out the trash could be Jaqen. By this point, you might be wondering why I think Jaqen will return. He seemed to have served his purpose, as convoluted as D&D made it. I have 3 reasons. A part of me suspects that Jaqen never has left Arya alone, and that with one face or another, we've seen him with or checking up on her. So I don't believe Jaqen would just let Arya go. Second, several interviews with Tom Wlaschiha aroused my suspicions. The third reason involves a spoiler, so if you don't want to know it, I'll include a timestamp here of where to fast forward to so as to avoid the information. Also, as a general precaution, I would recommend avoiding the comment section of this video because you just never know. So limit your exposure, just don't even go there. Let's talk about the suspicious interviews. In a previous video, I've referenced a July 2017 interview that was posted on a Tom Wlaschiha fan page YouTube account. I don't know where the interview actually came from. I just seen it on the account. I will link it in the description box for your viewing pleasure. I've referenced an interview July 2017 in which Tom Wlaschiha, who portrays Jaqen, was asked about Jaqen returning to the show. Tom's response was, "I do not know. You forget a few things at my age." Keeping in mind, of course, at the time of that interview, I believe Tom Wlaschiha was 42. That is a curious answer, because you'd think if Jaqen wasn't going to come back, Tom would have just said no. To me, the answer Tom gave was one you'd expect from someone who didn't want to give anything away, yet didn't want to deny their return and lie to fans. Then, several months later, in November 2017, Tom was in Singapore for HBO Asia's 25th anniversary celebrations and was asked by a fan if Jaqen would be in Season 8. Tom answered, "A man knows nothing," speaking in the third person as Jaqen would. And by the way, that answer is kind of a nod to Jon Snow. I wonder if anything can be gleaned from that. Anyway, Tom followed up by saying, "That's my standard answer to avoid giving away spoilers." My immediate response to that is, you can't spoil something that you aren't a part of. In other words, if Jaqen wasn't going to be in Season 8, Tom wouldn't be spoiling anything by saying so. I mean, what would it spoil about the story? Nothing. However, if Tom did admit that he's reprising his role, all sorts of inferences could be made as to what that means for the story. Look no further than this video for the proof of that. Nevertheless, Tom's continued ambiguous responses to questions of Jaqen's return make me think he is coming back. The third interview, which has implications for a Jaqen return, is also from 2017. Tom spoke to Access Hollywood to explain Jaqen's decision to allow Arya to leave Braavos alive. Tom said that the Faceless Men are using Arya for their own ends. In my opinion, it was clear from the beginning. That's the reason he trained her. He didn't train her to become a faceless man and stay in the House of Black and White and Braavos forever. I think that the faceless men, they certainly have an interest in what's going on in Westeros. What's the point of training her if she can't put that training to good use? I talked about this previously, that the Faceless Men's interests in Westeros and Arya's personal agenda are the same, hence why she was allowed to leave. They knew about her list and exactly who was on it, so they knew who she would kill. They even made sure to emphasize that one person who was on the list should not be on the list and that he didn't deserve to die. In fact, they got Arya to admit that to herself. In any case, Arya's agenda and the Faceless Men's agenda is clear. Both are anti-Lannister. Now, what does this have to do with Jaqen returning? Well, Arya killed House Frey, but chose to forego killing Cersei. So she left the job half done, meaning the Faceless Men's interests in Westeros aren't being completely advanced. So, to ensure that they are fully advanced, Jaqen could return to finish what Arya started, which means if he killed Cersei to cement the Faceless Men's agenda, he would be the Valonqar. Now, let's discuss that spoiler. If you don't want to know, click off this video. According to an EliteDaily.com article from May 2018, Season 8 will encompass another dragon pit scene. The production team was on location in Seville, Spain at the Italica ruins where the dragon pit scene from Season 7 was filmed. At the beginning of the week of May 9th, 2018, Game of Thrones actors started turning up at the same hotel the group stayed in the previous year when they were in Seville for filming the Season 7 dragon pit scene. The article further details that pictures of cast stunt doubles on location got out, followed by pictures of the actual actors themselves. I won't detail who the individuals were because it's thought that this scene is going to be part of the show finale, and I definitely don't want to ruin that and tell you who was there. That could just ruin too much for people, so I'm not going to do that. However, if you want to know, I'll link the article in the description box for independent reading. Of the cast that was spotted in Seville, one person is of note, Tom Wlaschiha. You tell me, what is Tom doing in the same city as show production and other cast members at the same time they're filming what is assumed to be one of this season's pivotal scenes? The article didn't say Tom was working on a separate project, which coincidentally brought him to Seville at the same time Game of Thrones is filming. So I see no other reason for him to have been there than he was part of Game of Thrones filming, which would mean that Jaqen H'ghar will return in Season 8. One last aspect I'd like to touch on. If Jaqen were brought back as the Valonqar, there's potential for a previous storyline to be brought full circle. During the sack of King's Landing, a Lannister gave the order for the murders of Targaryen children, specifically Rhaegar's children. It would be one hell of a reveal if after drinking poisoned wine, as Cersei begins feeling the effects of the poison, Jaqen removes his face to unveil his true identity, Rhaegar Targaryen, and says a Lannister always pays their debts, just as Cersei croaks. Targaryen children were executed on a Lannister's order, and now a Targaryen murdered that Lannister's child. A circle made even more complete by the fact that the Targaryen is the father of the murdered children. It would also be ironic because Cersei has always deeply desired Rhaegar in a very creepy, obsessive way. Careful what you wish for, girl. And on that note, this video is at its end. I hope everyone enjoyed my explanation of Jaqen H'ghar as the Valonqar. Will it happen? I don't know. But what I do know is that the show has enabled itself to go this route if they'd like. And if they do go this route, it would deliver the drama I spoke of in the Dany Valonqar video, possibly even more so than Daenerys killing Cersei, because Jaqen is an option none of us would expect. And it opens the door for another big reveal, again if the show wants to go that way. Seeing as this is the final season of the show, I think bringing Jaqen back would be a good surprise for the audience. Not purely for shock value, because let's face it, they've done enough things just for the sake of shock value and are sure to do more. But this is different. This is based on the show's own history. But let me know what you think, though. Might Jaqen be the Valonqar? Might he not be? Leave a comment down below, like, and subscribe for more content. I'm Ashley of Noth. Thanks for watching.